uh, not a pixelscopic project,
Yeah.
someone else's project,
Yes. And that
and interesting
I would
ideas
leave
for
it
it.
there so as not to confuse people.
Yeah,
But yeah,
no
so
open air markets in Delversdrop that I know
nope,
of yet.
not well. You never know.
Well, hello and welcome to our weekly new time. Like, I guess we're gonna have to do a new time in like 2 or 3 more weeks since it's gonna be daylight savings again pretty soon here.
Are we?
Um, well, I mean, it'll be new for you, right? Because you don't do daylight savings, and
Yeah,
it's new for.
it'll just be 4:30 or no, it'll be yeah, no, it'll be 4:30 to 5:30 for me.
And I forget if Europe or what parts of Europe and other countries do daylight savings.
I think
Um,
Europe does daylight savings.
I assume not all of it, but
I don't. I
um,
know Russia doesn't.
so anyway, yeah, we're doing 6:30 to 7:30 Wednesday nights now. That's Central Standard. Um, Partly it was just like when I since I stream from home now, I have to come home from the office, grab something to eat, and then get ready to stream. And it was just like I was like super rushed and stressed out trying to get here every day, and was like on the verge of running late if there's ever an issue. So now I have plenty of time to eat. I can get set up, make sure there are no audio or tablet issues, which are usually the two front runners for something going wrong. But anyway. Um, so, do you want to do introductions?
Yeah, sure. So this is Ryan Baker for Pixelscopic. He is the creative and visionary director and man of many hats, uh, as the saying goes.
I think I own 3 hats that I haven't worn in years, as far as real hats.
Well, in real hats, I own
Yeah.
one, and it's a new hat. But we can talk about hats in a second.
Okay.
And I'm Vase. I am a streamer slash YouTuber slash I don't even know what's going on in my life anymore. So I
Man
stream
of many hats is, I
yeah, I
think,
am
the phrase
also a
that
man
you.
of many hats and apparently getting new ones all the time. Not necessarily related to Pixelscopic, but as far as Pixelscopic goes, I am streaming and YouTube and forum moderation and any other job that they want to
Didn't
give
I
me.
thought we came up with like an actual sort of title for you at some point? I don't really know.
Kobe did like at PAX East, and I can't remember, but it was some like anagram, and I really liked it, but for some reason I can't remember. My job is cheerleader. How's that?
I was trying to think like media distribution something. I don't even know.
Sure,
But
I like that. I like that job title. Let's I like media distribution coordinator. How about that?
it sounds pretty good. So, and you have your own streams and such, but I guess we can plug those at the end so that people
Yes,
can
I
go,
do. I said
check
it's
you
at
out
VASAE.
after. What's that?
I said it's at VASAE here
Okay.
on Twitch, and we'll be playing Disgaea tomorrow.
So how much of your life have you set aside for that?
Well, with this project that I've told you about, less than I'd personally want, but I'm trying to be a mature adult about this project that I'm doing, and realistically being adult about it. So, at least 2 or 3 hours a day for Disgaea, because that's how I usually stream 2 hours a day on weekdays now. So, yeah. Took a couple minutes to play around with the port.
And which version are
Everything's-
you playing? That was gonna be my next question.
Oh, this is Afternoon of Darkness port for PC.
Oh,
that's
okay, so the
that's
new one that
that's
just
the
came out on
PS
Steam.
Yeah, that's the PSP port of.
It was originally PS2.
Yeah, it was originally on PS2, which I have over 1,000 hours on.
Oh, holy jeez! I've heard of hundreds of hours. I don't know if I've heard about anyone clocking 1,000 hours on a game from like firsthand experience.
I had 667 hours when I was in college, and I've logged at least 500 more hours that I can remember since college.
I mean, I probably put like over 200, maybe like I don't know. The timer stops at 99 hours on Final Fantasy Tactics, and
Yeah.
I've spent like 300 hours on that over the course of my life. But
I talked about this with Doom. Final Fantasy Tactics is one of the few games that I've bought more than once.
Yeah. And
Um,
I'm the sucker who used to buy like versions of games that I liked or I thought were I guess like collectible. I guess I would definitely buy those multiple copies, but I try not to do that quite so much anymore.
yeah, I
But
bought Final Fantasy Tactics for the PS. I mean, I had a PS2, but I bought it.
you
When I
bought
got,
the digital copy?
No, I bought the hard copy.
Oh, like so you played it on PS2, but you bought it for PS1.
Well, yeah, because there was no PS2 port for it.
Right, right. Oh, sorry. I guess I was thinking PS3 and downloadable, whatever.
Right, yeah.
Um,
No, I bought the PS1 copy twice for
Yeah.
PS2. Because
Okay.
the first time a friend took it and quote borrowed it and never gave it back.
Yeah.
And then I moved and bought another copy. And then I bought War of the Lion, which is the PSP port.
Yeah, and so War of the Lions I was really excited about, and it has cool FMV sequences and all that, but I basically could not play it between the loading times and and it has a new translation too,
Yeah.
like all kinds of awesome stuff. But between the loading times and the fact that they stretch the graphics horizontally just a little bit is the kind of thing that I notice, but a lot of people don't. Because I talked with people about it and they're like, oh, it's not a big deal. I'm like, I can't look at it because it's slightly horizontally stretched. That drives me crazy.
Yeah,
And,
so I'm one of those people where I was like, whatever.
yeah.
The loading times were absurd, though. And
So-
I've heard some people saying the Disgaea port's not great. I played around with it.
Yeah, see, that's why I guess like tying it back to you say Disgaea or Disgaea, I say Disgaea, but tying it back, like I'm a little worried with some of. I mean, it's super cool that these Japanese companies are releasing lots of games for Steam all of a sudden. Like that's awesome. Because now hopefully we'll get games on Steam that would have only been like oh, it only comes out in Japan on the PSP or whatever previously. Like that's kind of the the extent to which some of these things would have been released in the past. But then I really worry that they're going to be horrible ports that I'll be like, oh, like I'll buy this guy, maybe I'll play it again, and then I play it for 5 seconds. I'm like, oh, this looks like garbage. Or like what's the worst thing is when they actually have good sprite art or graphics or whatever, and it somehow like isn't up-res properly on some high-res device like PC or whatever.
hmm By the way, your mic is getting some static or something.
I haven't changed the setup in a couple of weeks, although
that might be me.
well, I did get a new we were talking about how you went and bought a new router and found out it wasn't your router. I bought a new router because we had been having internet problems, and I had our area's service provider. It's like the one cable provider around this area. Come
Yeah.
look at it, and they're like, we can't find anything wrong.
Also,
So
whatever you did, you fixed it. So.
well, I didn't do anything. I looked at my router. I gave it a mean look. But I bought a more powerful router because I'm like, well, if I'm going to buy one, I might as well get one that's going to last even longer. It seems to have improved things, but
Your audio cut out.
I think I actually just lost you for a second. Did you lose me?
Yeah.
So I think we are having some interference because when that happens, my headphones will drop for a split second.
Right.
But-
You and I actually have the same brand of headphone.
Yeah, and
You
they're
have a lot-
really good, but just every once in a while I'll lose connection. And,
Yeah, and I knew exactly what was going on with your headset with the crackling, because mine does the exact same thing right before it cuts out.
So yeah, I don't know what would be causing interference. Although I guess this would be the first week that we've done this with the router. But I've been listening on these headphones and haven't had an issue in the in the
That's
last
good.
week or so.
Yeah, you're clear again. I figured it was exactly what happens with mine, and I'm pretty sure it is something to do with the router interference. Because when my router was off for the hour and a half, my headphones worked fine.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, on the Disgaea port, the only thing that I noticed is the frames are a little slow, or a little low. Like the sprite animation is a little slower.
So it's, you think the frames are the same as before, they just run slower? Is that kind of what you're saying?
It seems to be, yeah. Well, the issue is they ported it from the PSP, which...
Yeah, so maybe it wasn't the cleanest port ever.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And Doom is saying, speaking of bad ports for Japanese games, Final Fantasy VI.
Which port is he talking about? The Steam one again, I assume, because didn't that just come out?
All I saw was the fucking port of FF6.
I assume he probably means Steam. I mean, yeah, that one, I guess people were, well, it's based on, like, I think they did, like, mobile phone versions, and then they did, who knows what version in between, like, you know, I have lost track. I used to keep track of all this stuff, but it's, yeah, all the sprites are, like, redone, but kind of, I don't really like how they're redone. They look too bubbly. Like, I kind of, it's sort of like this, kind of Korean 16-bit style, except it's an MMO style, like a, you know, like kind of MapleStory in sort of that, like that sort of genre. There's this particular, like, kind of fuzzy, soft style that I for some reason associate with these Korean kind of 16-bit looking MMO games. And that's what the new port of Final Fantasy VI looks like.
Yeah,
but then besides that, they apparently up-resed it. Yeah, like Matt, who works for us and has been on the stream a couple times, sent me an article about someone kind of picking it apart.
Yeah, well, Matthew likes Undertale, so he has no right to voice an opinion about anything.
Well, I mean, that was intentionally, like, meant to look like barely even 8-bit, right?
Yeah, I was just taking a pot shot at Matt, because I like him, and that's what I do when I like people, because I'm sarcastic and mean. Plus, it gave me an excuse to shit on Undertale for a second. And you know, it's like a drug addiction, Baker. Like, if I'm not crapping on Darkest Dungeon or Undertale at least once a day, I'll go through withdrawal.
Okay. Well, let's catch up on some gaming news, because I have definitely continued to be out of the loop.
Gaming news, well, this game was live today.
Oh, I guess I thought it was already out, but
nope,
I at least knew that was coming.
It was today. Far Cry Primal, I thought, was either coming out or it's coming out. I know a lot of people are already playing, and I can check on its release date. I typed in Fry Cry. It's not the game.
That's like, I'm imagining that's a game about a little kid who drops his or her fries, you know, in McDonald's, and you have to console them.
I would play that game. That sounds like a great indie game. Yeah, Primal released yesterday.
Yeah, I've always kind of been curious about the Far Cry series, but I have not played any of the games.
Doom is saying Far Cry Primal was delayed for a week for PC, but it is out for PS4. And I don't know. I kind of like the concept because it's novel. Like, how many games take place in, like, the Stone Age?
Mm-hmm.
All the things I've seen, just it's Far Cry. It's sandboxy. Go here, clear an area or a zone of control. Go here, clear another zone of control. I really haven't played Far Cry 3 or 4, but it looks beautiful, but that's kind of the bread and butter of AAA console release games nowadays. So I think saying, oh, well, the game looks good, so what more do you want, is kind of a banal point now, you know? It's like, okay.
Yeah, everything looks good, so talking about the graphics is kind of just, I mean, you got to be pretty into graphics for it to really matter that much. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it is kind of this war of attrition of are always getting better kind of in the 3D space. And I mean, I think 2D graphics have gotten better too. Like, I think people are just kind of putting more effort in, or it's not like it's really taken this long for us to learn lessons about 2D, but I think indies have really kind of stepped it up a notch um, in terms of doing cool things with 2D that, you know, it's like doing 16-bit style games but with more modern kind of sensibilities, or, you know, color capabilities on the hardware. I mean, kind of like what we're doing. It's not really,
Yeah, I was about to say,
you know, we're not doing
what you guys
pixel
are
art,
doing.
but no, I see people doing like really cool stuff with pixel art, and I try to kind of keep up with it and study it for my own, you know, like, well, basically kind of apply it to my own work too.
Well, you're an artist. Unfortunately, all I do is look at it and go, wow, I'll never be able to do that. But I mean, yeah, people are doing some really cool stuff. I look at your stuff and I get jealous. Baker's got great art. That was the main draw for me for Delver's Drop, was the art.
Well, I guess that's why we do the stream every week, huh?
That's the idea.
I guess I don't know. I've been thinking it might be nice to do more talk about kind of art techniques, but then that's a little hard to you know, to really like. I would basically have to come up with lesson plans or something, and half the time I'm not really it's. Yeah, I mean, it would be easier if this were like a bigger image. Like, I can't really tell you what I'm doing right now because I'm just on autopilot kind of, but I'm just trying to make this look better, whatever better means.
Doom is asking if that skull is part of the broom.
This is for the death rattles.
Yeah,
actually.
that's what I thought.
And I sort of like the icon I had for the death rattle better than the skull that I'm drawing, so I'm gonna pull that over here.
People are braving tornadoes to come to our stream, by the way.
Where are there tornadoes right now?
In the south.
Oh, yeah, my sister lives in Louisiana, so my mom was texting something about, like, warning her about, like, you know, watch out for tornadoes and weird weather, and I kind of wrote it off as my mom being a mom, but I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it is that time of year.
Well, and we've had some weird weather in the Midwest. Like, it warmed up a lot for the last couple weeks, and then suddenly, you know, we had like snow and all this stuff last night, like a little bit of snow and kind of. It wasn't like freezing rain or anything. I mean, it never got below freezing temperature-wise, so it wasn't gonna stick. But it was just like suddenly, you know, decided to turn into winter again when it felt like spring, pretty legitimately for a couple weeks.
And you are also a reason why one of our people in the stream got an Intuos Pro.
Intuos, yeah, like
Intuos.
The pad that I'm using is well, this is they're by Wacom. Wacom makes the Intuos pads, and this is a Cintiq pad. Intuos are the ones without the screen, just if anyone's curious. But yeah, well, congratulations on your new purchase. I hope it's working out well. I used the Intuos pads for a long time. Like, I think the first one I had was like an Intuos 2, so that was quite a while ago. So yeah, they make the best. They're basically the only company. I mean, they have some competition now, but like for the longest time they were the only company making that kind of thing.
I don't know what my sister uses, but I know she has a pad of some variety. It doesn't have a screen like yours. I actually don't even know. I've never seen her use, like, she doesn't like people looking over her shoulder.
Yeah.
When she draws, she's really like paranoid about that. So I've seen her use it. I've never seen what's on the screen when she's using it. If she puts it in her lap.
Oh,
so.
I guess that makes sense. I've never really seen anyone do that, but I have heard of people doing that.
Who just messaged me? Oh. Sorry. Should put this into do not disturb mode while we're live. I'm a professional, you know. Yeah, I've actually never used. I'm sure I would actually do better than just with MS Paint because that's what I used to draw on the computer.
Yeah, I think the good alternatives to Photoshop, if you don't want to spend as much as Photoshop costs,
Mm-hmm.
are GIMP and
Yep.
just Paint Shop Pro, something like that. There was a guy I used to work with who I mean, he wasn't an artist, but he basically swore by Paint Shop Pro.
Yeah, I use GIMP when I need to use Photoshop. When I need a Photoshop program,
Yeah.
because it's free. Photoshop is expensive as hell.
Yeah, it's I mean, you can pay by the month now, but it ends up costing more over time.
Yeah. No, they got to make their money some way, right? Even if it's ridiculous, like it's like what, $600?
If you just bought Photoshop previously, you could probably get it for like 400, I want to say. Um, and now it's, I think, like 20 or 30 bucks a month. But the nice thing is you get updates, although like Photoshop hasn't had what I would really call a significant update in about 4 years, or at least like significant that I used. They've done all kinds of like, they've added 3D support, so you're not really going to do a model in Photoshop, or at least not that I know of, but you can import 3D models and paint them and crazy stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
which would be really cool if I did 3D. I'd be learning how to do all that stuff, but
That's
um,
like with Maya and stuff, yeah.
um, yeah. I mean, people usually paint textures in Photoshop, so I think they kind of added support, so you could just import the model and like paint directly on the model itself.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not gonna edit the model, I guess, once it's in Photoshop, just the textures.
Right.
Um,
My sister was doing 3D modeling for
okay.
a while. I've seen, and she used, well, both her and I guess my brother-in-law that lives in the Netherlands both use Maya for their 3D modeling.
Yeah. The game industry tends to use 3DX,
Mm-hmm.
3ds Max, um, a bit more than Maya, but people do use Maya.
Is Spine catching on?
Well, Spine isn't 3D. I mean, it has
No,
kind of.
Spine is 2D.
Oh, so you're just wondering, like in general, if
Mhm.
it's catching on?
Yeah,
In the
sorry,
market. I mean,
kind of
I
shifted gears a little bit.
I know a decent number of indie devs have used Spine. Um, I guess like in the grand scheme of things, I'm not really sure. But surely they've been getting a decent bit of business with, like since they support Unity and such now, I believe, or
Mhm.
Unity supports Spine, whichever way you want to look at it.
Right.
Um,
I've downloaded some. I need to actually download Unity itself, but I've done some poking around for Unity tutorials and stuff
mhm.
for that project. I just need to buckle down and do it. But I'm told by Doom and other people, like most of the people that I have on Twitter that are game devs that follow me, they all use Unity. Like the
Yeah.
guy who does Roller Disco Derby Dodgeball,
Mhm.
he did all of his stuff in Unity.
Yeah.
Black Ice is another guy that follows me. He did all of his stuff in Unity. Unity makes some really good. I mean, every game I've reviewed on my channel has basically been made by Unity in like the last year and a half.
Mhm.
So they seem to really be the big indie market guy.
Yeah. And I think they have some animation tools as well, just kind of built in.
Mm-hmm.
But I have not kept up with Unity development since we use our own engine and all.
Right. Well, yeah, you use the whatever Kobe is calling it.
Yeah, he
but
calls
Fragile.
it fragile, which is really just like a self-deprecating. He calls it fragile, like literally because he's afraid it's gonna break all the time, which it doesn't. It's more stable than the engine I used to use at my former company.
Do we have an update on where the physics is that you want to give everybody?
Oh, I mean, how about next week? I'll have an update.
Okay. That works.
We're having like an extra work session scheduled on Saturday to like as kind of a come on, let's fucking finish some stuff day.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're
hopefully
a god,
I will have
by
some.
the way, Baker.
Huh?
You are a god. Dude Baker is a god.
Oh,
With all your
is that a
drawings.
comment?
Yes, that's a comment.
Oh, okay.
And a compliment.
Well, thank you. I wish I had like omnipotent art powers. It would make my job easier.
It would indeed. Would you be making video games if you had omnipotent art powers though?
I just go make universes probably.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's an art power. That's just a general omnipotent power.
Yeah. That is what that is. Well, you'd only be omnipotent when it comes to art.
Okay.
Like drawing art.
Yeah, so I would make like not real universes, but like
2D painted universes.
yeah, like a little you know, it's sort of like an ant farm universe. I'd probably make something like that.
Right. That skull is unnaturally happy looking.
Do you
He's
not
happy
like that?
because
I mean,
that's
skulls
what
usually
Doom is
look like
saying.
they're grinning, right?
I think so. Plus, he's happy that he's a rattle. Rattles are musical instruments. He's happy that he's making music.
I
Doom
think he
should
looks
be
a little more evil now.
Yeah, Doom should be happy with that. It just means he's Brook. That's
It
a reference
means-
that only Doom will get.
It means what?
He's Brook. It's Brook. It's a character from One Piece.
Okay.
He is a musician in the party. If you want to look at the cast that way, he's the bard. Yep, Doom got it. I knew he would. Everything goes back to One Piece because Oda's like the greatest comic book writer.
I feel like I'm not making these look very much like maracas or shakers, because I'm forgetting how the handle is shaped. So
Was that the intent to begin with?
yeah, I mean they're like a maraca, like a rattle. So I think the handle is supposed to be more like this sort of shape. I don't know if that makes it look better or worse, but I just looked them up. I think that's fine. It's a different handle compared to a lot of the other stuff we have in the game, so I think it's probably good.
Right. So you should have one that looks like a marimba.
A marimba is more like that's like a xylophone.
Is it? I thought that was the. What am I thinking of? Oh yeah, I guess. Okay, yeah. The marimba is. What am I thinking of? There's one that's like you spin the top. It's like a top that you spin the top, and it's got like shakers in it that make noise when you shake it.
There's all kinds of weird percussion instruments like that. I'm thinking of the one, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like you rotate it and it goes.
I think we're talking about the same thing.
So it has like strings of metal beads essentially around the outside, so it doesn't have stuff inside of it. But yeah,
We're talking about the same thing.
I've played those a lot in band and everything because I was a percussionist, but I actually don't remember what they're called now.
Were you really a percussionist?
Yeah, I still play drums once a month at my church.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, play the drum set.
Were you in band?
Yeah.
So you were a band nerd.
Not really a nerd. I was more of like an art and math nerd. Yeah, I started playing drums in 5th grade and played all through high school. And we didn't have any cool like jazz band or anything. It was just marching band. And then when it was no longer marching season, it was concert band. And every once in a while we'd play at a basketball game, like kind of play. Sometimes it was jazz, but mostly it was just like rock. I think you call it like pep band or something like that because you're playing for during the intermission at a basketball game or whatever.
Right. By the way, I found the name of that instrument.
What is it?
AFUCHE. It's called the Latin Percussion Standard, Fuche or Cabasa.
Oh, Cabasa. Yeah, that's
that
what.
means head.
That's what we always called it.
Oh, that's Cabasa. Sorry. Yeah, Cabasa. Cabasa.
Mm-hmm.
We were thinking the same thing. I played woodwinds, so I was in
So what specifically did you play? Sax or something?
clarinet.
Okay.
I wanted to play sax, but I was never able to do that. But I played clarinet and bass clarinet.
Cool. Do you still
And
play
I
it all?
also played piano. So I was stringing woodwind.
Did
which
you
you can't-
do you still play it all?
No.
Not interested in going back, I take it.
Not to those two instruments. I'd love to learn cello.
Yeah, if I knew how to play piano, have a keyboard and would have lots of fun.
I haven't played piano. Well, so I played piano as a little kid, and then when we got into middle school, the band was super understaffed. Like, no one wanted to take band. So they did like this big push of, hey, everyone come and try out a couple instruments and see what you're good at, and if you enjoy it, then you can join band. And I hated playing the piano. My parent, I hated my piano instructor because she was just like super strict, and I was, a wild kid who hated sitting around for more than 20 minutes at a time. So I drove her crazy, and our parents were basically like, okay, we'll just put you in band and we don't have to pay a special instructor anymore. So Ryan, my twin brother, did trumpet, and he was first chair in trumpet. He still plays too. He's really good. He's very talented with the trumpet. And I did really well with the saxophone, but my parents didn't want to obviously buy a new saxophone, and we had a family clarinet. So they're like, okay, well, you'll just play clarinet. So that's why I played that. And I didn't really care for it much either. I would have much preferred playing the sax, but yeah, and I would like to play a musical instrument because I miss it, but I wouldn't go back to either of those. I like cello. I'd like to do strings again.
Yeah.
But they're expensive, so I'm sure I could rent one for cheaper. There's a lot of musical instruments in Phoenix. Musical instrument shops in Phoenix. There's like 2 in walking distance that they basically sell everything. So I go in there every once in a while and look at the price tags and feel bad. Like the one cello they have is like $1,200. It's super pricey just to drop on an instrument that I don't know if I'll be playing all the time.
Yeah.
So I could buy a keyboard though. I could probably pick up piano again. I just don't remember much of it.
Yeah.
But I've known how to read music since I was like 3 or 4. My parents were big on us doing extracurricular activities like that.
Yeah, my mom made me take a year of piano, or like a semester or something, whatever you'd call it, when I was a kid, and I wasn't really interested. I wish I would have been more serious about it now, but I wasn't that good at it. I was definitely better at drums, but I didn't really want to practice though. Like I've always had this sort of bad habit of, like, if I'm not sort of instantly naturally good at something, then I'm just kind of not interested. So I was pretty interested in art because I was like somewhat naturally gifted, I guess. Like, and if you're sort of used to that and you're like, oh, piano, like I'll try that out, and you suck, then you're like, well, why would I do that when I'm already good at art and I'd rather just get better at art? I didn't have these conscious thoughts when I was a kid, but I looking back, I'm like, oh, no wonder I never practiced music that much. Because it's actually a lot of hard work and a lot of hours. I'm like, I'd rather draw anime characters.
Oh, yeah, it's so like 3 or 4 hours a day if you really want to be good at the instrument that you want to play. It really it's a lot of work and a lot of dedication. And I was the same way. It's like I could be skiing, I could be playing video games because I thought I was good at those, but I'm probably not as good as I thought and think I am.
Well, but you're paying some bills with that now.
I am.
Streaming and all of
And
that,
this,
so it's
and
yeah.
whatever is coming in the future.
Take that, parents.
Yeah, well, my parents are pretty.
I just meant
Pretty,
parents in general.
Oh, okay. I would say my parents in general are pretty down with it. I think they would like me to be doing something that they think is a little bit more serious. I think my dad's disappointed I never went into law, but my brother did that, so he has one son that went into law that he can be happy that they carried on the family legacy.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it is for like parents and kids who are more separated. But usually, at least in all the twins that I know, and I know a lot of them, it seems that there's one who's really good at like the practical stuff, and one who's really good at like the artistic stuff. And that's how my brother and I are. Ryan was always the. Okay, yes, Nate, please go down to a basement and be safe. Apparently, they're sounding tornado sirens.
Oh yeah, I hope everyone's doing okay. I mean, I haven't checked in on my sister, but I haven't heard about any actual tornadoes. So.
Nate was saying that they had 5 touchdown, and I saw a couple people on Twitter that follow me that were saying that there was a lot of tornadoes that were dropping down. So please be safe. Stream's no reason to die over, even though it'd be good on the box.
You can always watch it later.
Yeah, I need to get on that actually and get the other highlight out. Because I was bad about that this week. But yeah, Ryan was always. I don't know how you have a sister, right?
Yeah, in Louisiana, dying from a tornado now.
Right. You were just talking about it. So I don't know if she's more practical, but all of my twin friends are like that.
Well, we weren't twins, but
Well, yeah, I meant I don't know how that sort of delineates between. I don't know how many years apart you guys are, but kids who are more than a year or so apart.
Well, I mean, I kind of have like older child syndrome a little bit, where I'm like sort of the more responsible, but I'm also like she's probably like ultimately more practical than I am in a lot of ways. So I don't know if we're talking about the same thing anymore, but
No, I think that goes hand in hand. My brother was definitely not to do VA family drama theater, but my brother was definitely the.
I think it needs a theme song.
It probably does, but he was always the more adult, more mature one. For sure, he was always the more grounded one. But when Ryan, because I used to sculpt a lot, and even up till high school, I was still. That's something that people thought I should just pursue, was to keep sculpting and go to like a college for sculpting, which I obviously didn't. But when Ryan looked at a piece of clay, he just saw clay. When I looked at a piece of clay, I was like, oh, I could turn this into an awesome dragon, or an orc, or some fantastic.
Oh yeah, I sculpted a couple dragons in my day.
Yeah.
Actually, one in shop class, I welded a dragon. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking?
Oh, that would be awesome. I have.
I didn't actually finish it though. That was the bad thing. So I had it was like a dragon's torso and wings out of. I mean, basically, it looked like a PS1 era polygonal model of a dragon, kind of, because it was so like chunky and geometric.
Right. So like a Final Fantasy VII dragon.
Maybe not even.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have. There was a guy in Ohio that did sculptures with like junk, like car like broken car parts and blown out fuses and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a dragonfly, and there's a really cool piece with like a dragon-headed guy riding a motorcycle, but it's all like ball bearings and wires, and it's all kind of half rusted. Things like 50, 60 pounds of metal. But I never got into welding because I think my parents thought I would like.
Well, that was in my shop class. We had to. I don't know. My shop teacher was kind of like, he was basically running the FFA club, I think, all the time and not actually paying attention to what we are doing. So he teaches how to weld, and he was a pretty good teacher as far as that went. But then he's like, okay, cool, like weld me something, and then like left us to make dragons, and I don't know, people were probably making flasks or who knows what.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to go into like wood shop and metal shop. We had to go into home ec because our parents were afraid that we'd kill ourselves.
Well, that's no fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was easy because I think I've said this before on this stream, but I know I've said it elsewhere. My mom's a chef. Like I'm a cook. I don't have any like I went to a culinary school for a little bit, but I don't really have any like formal training outside of that. My mom is like super trained chef. A lot and an artist. She also does colored pencil art. She has a lot of hobbies, but
and you, I think you've said before, you took after her, right? Between
yeah,
like,
yeah, I'm definitely the more artsy of the two sons. But you know, Ryan doesn't like cooking. Ryan doesn't like drawing. Ryan doesn't like getting his hands dirty. I remember when my dad bought an old stereo, and the first thought that I had was, oh, well, I need to see how this works. And I just completely took the whole thing apart and then put it back together in like a day. And then I thought my dad would be mad, which is why I put it back together. If I didn't think my dad would be mad, I wouldn't have put it back together. But he was overjoyed. He was beside himself. I haven't done any of that sort of stuff for a long time. But,
well, you sounds like you were taking your router apart last night.
Well, yeah, I was doing that. And I also a couple months ago I had to do something with do a couple things with my car. So, you know, I do like my own oil and stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely the more technical and more artistic. Where again, Ryan's much more. Well, there's a reason. I guess the best way to put it is there's a reason why he went into law, because he's really good at that sort of thing.
So going back to games, I was actually wondering if you have played Vagante on Steam.
I think we've talked about this.
Did we?
Yeah, a while back. I played Vagante when it was free, when they put out their demo, and then I heard they got a Kickstarter, but I haven't played it on Steam yet, and it's also $15. And
I think I bought it when it must have been like cheaper at some point during early access or something. I don't remember now.
I should preface this by saying, well, it's $15, so I don't want to buy it. That's not a very nice thing to say, especially when we're here working on an indie game where I hope you guys do pay the $15 that this is going to be.
But I mean, if it's in early access and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to like this or not, you know, I haven't, you know, like, yeah, I think it's totally fair to look at any game and say like, well, I wouldn't pay that much for it.
Right. I liked what I played of the free demo version. It's definitely not a game I'm good at. I'm not very good at platformers like Spelunky. I think I'd be better at Vagante than Spelunky, but I like the art. I mean, it's super pixely, kind of low res.
It looks a lot like, I mean, the palette reminds me of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is what and kind of the music and everything too, I think. So I like it, but I mean, I have some complaints about it, I guess. Like, it feels a little too dark, and the combat is like, I kind of don't like the way you have to fight things in these kind of confined spaces. Like, it doesn't feel like it takes full advantage of kind of what your melee capabilities typically are in a side-scrolling game, or take full advantage of what your platforming capabilities typically are in a platformer. So as far as like combat goes, I feel like you kind of get the worst of, like, you jump on things' heads, but it doesn't hurt them. You just kind of bounce off, and then you hit things, but a lot of times you're just kind of trading blows. So I mean, I guess if you play more carefully, then you probably get good at it. But I don't know. It's just kind of I'm really interested. I want to keep playing it and seeing what they update. It was kind of a weird experience for me, I guess, in some ways.
Well, when I played it, they didn't have like controller mapping. I think the game
Oh yeah, and I think I probably played that version too, and now they do have controller mapping, so that was good.
I think the game really would benefit. It was like Z and X to hit, to shoot, and all that with like spacebar to jump.
Yeah,
And
you should try it out again now that it has controller support though.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, I mean, there are a lot of new things as well.
Well, yeah, and when I played, they didn't have the mage class unlocked to play.
Mhm.
It only had the thief and the warrior. So yeah, I definitely want to go back to it. I definitely want to give it a try and take a new look. But yeah, I mean it's a game that I mean I have it on my wish list,
Yeah.
which means that I've taken an interest in it. I don't put games on my wish list that I'm not generally interested in. So that's really I don't use my wish list for like hey, buy me this. It's more of I
use it to keep track of. Well, and the nice thing is Steam will email you if anything on your wish list goes on sale.
Mhm.
So I just put all kinds of stuff on my wish list. Basically, I see a game and I'm like, oh, I kind of like that one screenshot. Their graphics look sort of cool, and then it's on my wish list. Like that's kinda,
Right.
And then I look through it again. I'm like, why on earth did I put this on my wish list? I guess I liked one of the screenshots.
The game I'm really kind of looking forward to is Enter the Gungeon.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit last week. I don't know if anyone has any updates on that. I mean, have they released any like really new information? I guess since
No,
I'm so busy on our just kind of trying to keep up with Kickstarter updates and all the stuff I have to do, I haven't been keeping up with anyone else's indie projects.
Doom said like March April for a release, I think.
Cool.
I know Doom has been playing it.
Yeah,
so
and
I don't
that
know
one
how much
I
more can say.
will definitely play that one. Like I'll probably buy that one right when it comes out.
Yeah, me too. Everything Doom has told me, which I'm not going to share because again, he is under massive NDA, which means I'm under massive NDA by proxy. Everything he said has made me super excited for it.
And I think it looks like the best sort of, there are a lot of people who have made kind of Binding of Isaac likes, and I mean, I guess we're to some degree guilty of that too. But it's the one that looks, I mean, it's very clearly a shooter. it's in the name, but it's the one that seems both like the most, I think, distinct from other ones. Like you've got stuff like A Wizard's Lizard, which is kind of a Binding of Isaac ripoff.
Don't.
We won't. Let's okay. we won't rip it a new one here, but I mean, but it's very clearly like if you liked Binding of Isaac, then you should try this. That was kind of their marketing tactic, probably. I have to assume. For Enter the Gungeon, it is kind of like that, but it has so many things that are more unique to it. Or, I mean, it does share some stuff with the really cool magic in I think it's called Tiny Wizard or something like that, which I was keeping track of it a little bit on the TIG Source forums, and it took a weird turn to doing like kind of semi 3D environments.
Yeah, the way Doom described it is it's what Nuclear Throne should have been.
Enter the Gungeon.
Enter the Gungeon.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, Nuclear Throne is kind of a Binding of Isaac like as well, but just trends way more toward like arcadey action, obviously, since it's
it leans more toward the twin stick shootery action shoot 'em up than calculated roguelike. Yeah. Which is fine. I don't really have anything to say too negatively about Nuclear Throne, the game.
Yeah, I mean, I've played it a bit, and it's pretty fun. Like I actually wish there was a little more RPG and a little less. Well, I kind of wanted to see like a little more return on my time investment, I guess, in the RPG direction. Where, but also every time you level up and you add a perk, there's not like for me at least, and I'm still kind of a neophyte. Like, there's not a real noticeable difference most of the time, and I wish, like, if they're going to treat it kind of like these power-ups, and, you know, you aren't going to level up that many times before you finish the game, I kind of wish there was a little more payoff each time you did level up. But where, you know, Binding of Isaac has much more clear power-ups, but I guess, you know, Nuclear Throne, the weapons kind of are it's like weapon slash power-up, like they're sort of the same thing.
Right. My problems are, I have some problems with Flambert politically speaking. Not to rant too terribly much on that, because we're not really a game politics thing. But the cycling. Oh, okay, well, you've beat the 5 levels, now you go back to the 5 levels and play again. To me, that's really lazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's what their kind of model is built on, is just like the fast replay. And I mean, they do that, like, they do what they do really well. Like, part of me is attracted to and wants to make that kind of game, but then at the end of the day, I'd really rather make something that's more like, kind of, you know, you can put more time into and get more out of that time investment as far as player reward. Mm-hmm. Like, kind of long-term player reward and customization. I mean, I tend to like fiddly games where you can customize and tweak lots of things. I know there's some customization and stuff that you can do in Nuclear Throne, but I haven't gotten to the point where my time investment is kind of paid off in customization.
From all of that I've seen,
like the hats or whatever you can wear, and like changing your weapon loadout at the beginning, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, still though, I think that's really shallow. Changing loadouts, hats, it's added fiddly bits to be fiddly. It doesn't really tie into the game more than, okay, well, you start off with this gun instead of this gun. Okay, well, what does that really do for me? But how much does it change gameplay? Does it change it a lot? Well, not really, because the whole point of the game is to change your weapons constantly. So
yeah, unless you're trying to play a very specific build and like keep a weapon set throughout or something.
Right. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious, I think, to anyone who watches at this point, the style of game that I like, especially since, you know, I'm here helping you guys on Delver's Drop. We weren't really allowed to play a lot of games growing up, so we, you know, and my parents were super into, like, no violent video games for a while. So the kind of games that I got to play are obviously a really strong foundation for me, and I'm more used to playing games like we were talking about in the beginning of the stream. I think I have at least 3,000 to 4,000 hours in StarCraft 1/Brood War. Without a doubt. I have at least 1,000 hours in Disgaea. I at least have 400 or 500 hours combined in Final Fantasy Tactics. I have 600 hours in EU4. So when I get a game, I love to play it over and over and over and over and over again. But I also want an investment in my time, which is like what you were saying. So Nuclear Throne, it doesn't games like Nuclear Throne, it doesn't keep my attention for very long, because it's like, okay, it's the same thing, it's the same thing, it's the same thing. So there's nothing interesting for me about that.
But it does leave me, and this is where we're probably going to end up with like, there's going to be a disagreement in some direction, let's say, either between you and I or with viewers. But it's you know, I look at games like that and I'm like, you know, I really like this game. There's certain, you know, I don't like the long-term play so much, but I really do like the short-term play. And they've obviously done really well. I mean, I think people are, you know, increasingly have less time, and I have less time to play games, and so I probably do tend to kind of gravitate toward games that it's like, you can just kind of jump in, get it right away. You know, I don't have to learn like a million new mechanics and kind of perfect my timing. I mean, that's, honestly, I would really like to get more into Dark Souls, but the hardest thing for me is just like getting used to the timing of it. Because I just haven't played enough of those kind of timing-based melee games, I guess, which I really wish I were good at, but I'm not good at that kind of timing, I guess, or that kind of pace.
Right.
but anyway, I look at Vlambeer style games and all of that and kind of think, okay, so this is obviously very popular. I'm not going to shift gears on Delver's Drop, but as we're balancing, what lessons can we learn from? I mean, it's another roguelike like. What lessons can we learn from something like Nuclear Throne or Binding of Isaac or what have you that can be applied to the formula that we're trying to execute? And in what ways do we not want to be like them? And something I've been thinking about lately, especially, and you might like this idea, but so imagine that you're playing Delver's Drop and you select your character and you go down into a level and die, and we're gonna have the game over screen, which probably has this, here's a skull and it says, you died, some information about it, and you've got some stats kind of printed out here. And I was thinking about so I wanted to have press A for a quick restart. So it won't literally say this in the menu, but that's kind of the idea. So press A to basically respawn the same character with the same starting item if we give you starting items, or like let's say whatever you took with you from the jail, maybe you can respawn with that item, something like that. So basically you don't have to go through any of the kind of hardship of going back to the jail and like breaking boxes till you find a couple of crappy starting items, that kind of thing. The other thing could be press B to to view jail. Which would also be, if you wait long enough, you're just gonna, it's gonna transition back to the jail. But I also thought about doing a third option, which is press X for basically hardcore restart, which automatically zeroes out everything, so that you don't have to like manually go and close the drop and manually start a new game. And we could just make that a mode. And we've kind of tossed that idea around, but I kind of like the idea of maybe you try doing hardcore restarts for a little bit, and if you hit X, we would obviously have to have a second kind of like, are you sure this is going to delete all of your stuff and reset all of your levels and all that? Right. So you'd have to reconfirm. But I like the idea of like introducing someone to the game and kind of getting them through tutorials, and they can play a little bit under normal circumstances, and then kind of introduce them to, okay, you can quick restart with this exact same character and loadout and stuff that you just had. Not the items you died with, but the items you started with. Or you can hardcore restart, zero everything out, and go back to the jail. And just kind of put that, make that from the menu. So for people who want to play that way, they can just hit X and, But I don't know. It's something I was just thinking about.
See, I thought this was good. It was going to be to begin with, so...
Well, I don't think we had ever talked about doing that specific... menu.
You hadn't, but that was what was in my head for the game,
Okay.
It's just what I assumed that you guys were going to do.
Okay, I think every time we talked about the hardcore option, it was just going to be a menu option if we did it at all. So
yeah.
Who knows? But
yeah. But yeah, I figured there would be quick restart, go back to jail, and then another option or two. So I'm happy with that. As a player, here's the thing that I think, because you said that you and I might have a disagreement about this long play versus short quick gaming sessions. I don't think I'm gonna try to put this nicely, because that's how I try to be, unless I'm talking about a wizard's lizard. I think there's a false dichotomy there. I don't necessarily think that it's one or the other. I think you can have a deep game with lots of fiddly bits, but also this quick... hot seat is the term that people use a lot. This hot seat mode where you jump in and the game is ready for you to play, and you can pick it up and you can play it.
Yeah, and that's why, maybe even from the... we could do something where from the front menu, you can have kind of a quick continue that basically just instantly, our default way that the game has worked before is you start in the jail, you move the jailer around slowly, you choose a character. It's kind of about the experience, you know. The idea is to make you feel like you're truly in this world, and you have to like release a character and you get that story element, you know, that each character you play is a different one, and when they die that character is gone. Like their guild retains knowledge through kind of a magical system or whatever, but you know, you literally killed a little rogue.
Right.
So I still want people to get that, but I mean that means every time you die, you've got to move the jailer around slowly, select the rogue again, go down to the drop, open it. Like lots of, you know, it's a very kind of not higher barrier to entry, but it's a high time barrier to getting into the game compared to a lot of games now. So I've been thinking more about just you know, not allowing players to cheat or anything, but basically just giving you a way to shortcut the time sink of choosing a character by just, you know, maybe even just like starting the game up with the jailer standing next to the jail cell of the last character you played, and you have a quick restart option from that main menu that immediately you just drop down to the last level you were playing, like however far down you got in your last playthrough with that character with a weapon.
Right.
Which is all
Or
stuff
at
you
the
could
start
do
of the game.
yourself, but it takes you 5 minutes.
Right. Well, and I think that's a good idea because that's what people like about Isaac. When you die, you just go back to the character select screen, or you can just hit restart and you'll start at the beginning of the game with the character. And I think that would be a really good thing to include. Here's my thoughts, and keep in mind, everybody, I've never made a video game, so I could be completely full of crap on this, and obviously Baker can weigh in if I am or not. But to me, the best way to go about making a video game is keep everything really simple. I talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago, but in cooking, the best food is something that's not complicated. It's a combination of simple ingredients that make the entire whole complex. And I going back again to next week, or last week, sorry, where I like to take theories in other aspects and apply them elsewhere, and you know, try to make a unified mindset on design. I don't see why it should be any different in video games. So you have five systems in a video game that are all really simple to pick up on and really simple to learn, and anyone can pick them up and anyone can learn them in the early game, and there's no barrier to entry in those. But as the game progresses and as those five systems interact, you get, I guess, what people would call emergent gameplay, which allows the game to be complex. I think that's the way to do it. I think that's what makes a good game. Not that I don't have problems with Isaac. I mean, not that I have no problems with any game I play, because I'm a critical person, and I'm always going to find fault in something. It's just to me that just makes sense to say, look at the games that have succeeded really well, even though they don't have the big budgets that these super AAA games that have millions of dollars of budget. So you take a look at The Binding of Isaac. The Binding of Isaac's not complicated. You have a character, the stats are pretty easy to determine. You see a quick, clear interaction with most items. I'm not going to say all items, and that's one of the problems I have. But there's always this progression of transparency. But how that tiers up in a shot speed upgrade, how those interact, how 5 or 6 different items interact, that's when things get complex. So Monstro's Lung in The Binding of Isaac does a clear, concise effect. Then you pick up, just today on stream I got Tech X, which makes you shoot like a big bubble of damage. So when you pick that up in conjunction with Monstro 2, it creates like a bunch of little bubbles that shoot out. So it's always this, how is this item going to interact? And it's the same way for in-game systems in video games. How is X system going to interact with Y? What can I do with this? Oh, well, in Delver's Drop, there's this physics system. Okay, and the Gladiator has really cool knockback effects. So what if I hit something and pushed on the trigger to step backwards? What will happen if I change the momentum of my character to go with the knockback. Oh, okay, now I'm moonwalking. Now I'm literally sliding further back away from enemies than I was normally because it takes in all of that perspective. I've now tested something in the game world where the two systems are very simple and very easy and very approachable, and I've made it complex by combining them. I hope that made sense. Sorry for the rant.
Well, to some degree, I think you're talking about even like bugs, but yeah, I mean, I think it's also interesting when bugs in Delver's Drop, but it's always interesting when bugs end up kind of creating interesting gameplay that then the developer chooses to include. Although I think the sort of moonwalking thing, I'm not sure if that's optimal or not, or maybe it's just like animation wise it looks pretty weird. But I'm not completely against including it.
Oh, it was completely optimal. Basically made the gladiator unhittable. You wouldn't rocket away. You'd slide back really far. It wouldn't look like your feet were moving, hence the moonwalk, because it literally looked like you were just sliding along the ground. But yeah, I mean, and that's I guess my theory on game design. So going back to this in depth, and we're actually at 7:30 there, Baker. So we might want to wrap up if you want to.
And we can keep going just a little bit here.
Okay, yeah, I was just letting you know. It's just when you have simple things, it's making things simple is obviously easier to implement instead of these big complex things. And that's really all complexity is. It's a bunch of smaller facets in a larger bag. And Doom is also saying you could walk forward and negate the knockback as well with Gladiator, which you could also do. Or you could do some really funky things with the slidiness of the sorcerer as well. I ballroom danced with a gobble once. That's the best way I can put it. And it was great, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about Delver's Drop is the physics system. But that's one of the things that I love about games in general, especially as I get older and I may have less time, but since the games that are coming out are all these varied facets, and I love that, I now have the chance to really play with the systems and figure things out that I was never really interested in doing as a kid. Because I only had like 2 hours to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I could only play, Final Fantasy games because they were cartoony violent, not like blood gushing everywhere. So, but even games, obviously games like JRPGs, they're very front heavy. There's a lot of rules, and that's kind of what I mean is the rules should be simple. They should be easy to be explained, and you should explain them all in like the first 5 minutes of the game. They should all be approachable in the first 5 minutes of the game. It's okay. Well, I've played this game for 10 hours now. Each run has been different, but all the core rules are the same. Okay, now I know what to do with this rule. Now I know what to do with this rule. I guess the best way I can put it is don't treat your player like he's stupid. Don't assume your player, quote, won't get it, unquote. Because the player is often as smart as anybody. And the best way to learn something is to play with it. So you sitting there babysitting like, okay, here's what the attack button does, and you can attack in these 5 directions. Let them figure that out. Okay, you can do a jumping slash. No, let them play with it.
But I think the way we're gonna, I want to have some pretty extensive tutorials because I think a lot of people see our game and think it's gonna play just like Zelda, and obviously it does kind of pick up a lot of things from Zelda, but we also try to subvert those expectations or that kind of design philosophy in certain ways. So, I want to have a decent bit of tutorial, but at the same time, I want people to be able to skip that tutorial. Or, the way our dialogue system works, we made a really clear decision at the beginning that, whenever you're reading text that someone's saying, you can like walk away. Like you can, it might stay on the screen, but you don't have to sit there and punch the A button through dialogue. So I think doing things that way, where you give the players some freedom, even in the midst of a tutorial, and that's one of the things that I think is so good about something like like Half-Life or Portal tutorials is,
Hmm.
well, I mean, they work it more into the narrative, where I'm going to try to work ours into the narrative a little bit. um, but they're usually kind of funny with it, and so you're not super bored because you're kind of laughing through part of it. But then or at least like Portal 2, so they give it some character. They don't really, they never fully take control away from you, which I think is key.
Hmm.
um, and Yeah, just kind of giving you the space to play with it, rather than like, well, now you have to like go to this menu and hit the X button. Like, maybe I want to look at something else first. I'll get to that.
Right, right.
But
Although I think there's a style of game where you can allow that in a game that's like Final Fantasy Tactics, where everything is dialogue box driven. It's a little harder to give the player autonomy, but that's why you have the skip button, I guess. And I think that's important. Any or hold this button down and text scrolls by faster. I think that's also
yeah,
important in games that are dialogue based box based. Well, so yeah. I mean, I guess like I said, I've never built a game, so I don't know how it all works in practice. But I've played enough games at this point that I think I have a pretty good grasp of what I like, what I don't like, and what I assume other players don't like, and what I don't like. Because obviously, I've been on the internet and I talk to a bunch of people who play video games. So there's just I think it shows like we have all these retro games, and they try to mimic and to copy.
I lost you for a second there.
Oh, no problem. Sorry. Um, we have all these retro games where they're trying to go back to an older time for games, but a lot of the older time games had really bad design, either through technical limitation or just
Yeah, I mean,
they didn't.
it took, I think, user experience took us a few decades to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at some of the old Nintendo games that people have all this nostalgia for.
Yeah, like I mean, I think they were good. They were really great experiences in terms of gameplay, or in terms of, sometimes just atmosphere at the time, or world building or what have you. But very few of them had like a really good user experience, except for something like Mario, which, I mean, there's not much. There's like, I mean, Nintendo kind of has the magic of like making sure nothing is ever in your way, and so all of their user experiences stuff is hidden. Like there are no really menus to deal with, things like that. But they trim and trim and edit until like the user experience is perfect, and I think that's part of the reason people like them. But people don't realize that. Whereas a lot of other games have pretty poor user experience.
Hmm.
And so you feel like you're fighting with the game or fighting with the menus, or however you want to look at it.
Right. My main problem now with Nintendo, other than again the politics, um, of of their company, is they've trimmed and trimmed and trimmed and trimmed to a point where I think a lot of their games are just no longer challenging. They've
Yeah,
they've
I
they've
think user experience and challenge can be separate things, but I mean, I do agree with that. Like, or they're challenging in kind of weird ways.
Yeah. Well, here I guess user experience and challenge can be different, but what I mean is they look at all these obstacles, not just in their user interface, but also in their game. I mean, take a look at, like, I think we talked about last week, the newest Zelda game on the 3DS that isn't a spin-off, the Link Between Worlds. Just it's so easy. They've removed all
Yeah,
barriers of challenge because of, and it is user experience, because it's all the kids and the older people who they feel are their demographic now, thanks to the Wii. And it basically said, okay, well, we have these demographics of these old people and these young kids who don't want to challenge. Well, they do want to challenge. Why do you think that they don't want to challenge? You know, it is user interface, but in a different way.
yeah. I mean, well,
It's feedback. and demographics.
Yeah, I guess if you view challenge as an obstacle to the user having an optimal experience, then
I
that's
do.
that's where well, I mean, you're arguing that challenge leads to a more optimal experience in some ways, or at least I think you would argue that. Whereas, Nintendo, I think, sees certain kinds of challenge as diminishing the average user experience.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm I don't classify myself as a hardcore gamer. Um, I see the merit of video games that are easy. Doom and I talk about like Dragon Age Inquisition all the time about how it's a crap game for crap game players. Not that I necessarily feel that way. Play whatever you want. At the end of the day, I don't give a crap. As long as you're happy, that's all I care about. I'll make fun of you for it, but at the end of the day, I won't care. um, but I definitely I like a game that doesn't treat me like a child, and not even on a difficulty thing, just in text or in user interface or any of that stuff. I don't like a game talking down to me because it's entertainment. I don't like my entertainment to be condescending.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that Nintendo's design motto now is no sharp edges,
Yeah.
And obviously there are other. I think that's just AAA gaming in general now, which is one of the big reasons why I don't really do AAA gaming anymore. I mean, I'll buy the occasional Fallout 4 or Inquisition for my channel because I want to play what people want to watch and people are still into AAA gaming. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think that's. I don't think that's where people are finding the innovation. I don't know about that in the indie community either. I think the indie game, the scene has been. I mean, just with the ease of making video games, there's a saturation point. So there are some people who are still making, I think, innovative and neat concept games. You guys obviously, Enter the Gungeon. Devolver is actually really good about like sourcing talent, and keeping innovative and keeping things fresh. Obviously, they picked up Hotline Miami, Heavy Bullets, which I thought was a really good game, and
Yeah.
obviously,
I mean, and I know they fund some stuff, but they're really kind of a publisher, so it's like the indie developer comes up with the idea first, and then they probably approach or get approached by Devolver.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, they know, like they're successful enough, but they also, I think, know good indie games when they see them.
Right, they're a really good barometer. Not that I like every game that they've published, because they aren't. Devolver Digital is not a game developer; they're a game publisher. But they do indie games. They publish indie games. Doom is asking if the music in the background is Delver's drop music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, I always play the same mix. It might just be a little louder than it used to be. But yeah, this is the boss music actually.
Oh, wish I could hear it. But yeah, just with the open marketplace that Steam has kind of taken. It's shovelware basically. There's a lot of first time video games where people were like, I'm going to make a video game, and they didn't realize how difficult it would be, or they didn't go into it with the right mindset. And I say this stuff being someone who's going into game design, and who kind of works in game design already. But I guess and I hope that I have a little bit more forethought, because I'm generally older than the people putting out stuff on Steam that's like Cat Quest 7, where it's Final Fantasy but you're cats. I'd hope that I have a little bit more.
I want to see that now.
I'm sure that's out there. I can guarantee you it's out there. And it may be a great
I'm sure
game.
it is.
I don't know. Not to shit on anyone making a video game, because at the end of the day, you tried. You might have failed, but you tried. And no one can take that away from you, even if your game is garbage. Not to be rude. There's value in doing, and there's value in failing. Everything's a lesson. That's Kyle's Zen moment of the day.
Well, and I mean, now that I'm getting into bombs, I think this is a good place to leave it, maybe till next week,
Sure.
unless anyone has any questions or additional comments or anything.
We can wait and see. Doom, Nade, any additional comments? I like the bombs, by the way,
Thanks.
and I know Doom is excited for bombs. Nope, looks like all is quiet on the Eastern Front there.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for showing up to watch me doodle stuff for yet another week.
Yes, thank you guys for coming. This has been Ryan Baker for Pixelscopic, and I suppose me as well. Ryan Baker is lead creative director and visionary director of Pixelscopic, among many other things. And what did we say I was at the top of the hour? I'm multimedia consultant.
Yeah, I don't know if that was it, but that sounds pretty good.
Okay. And I'm multimedia consultant Kyle, and I also do my own stream. And when I get a copy to play, I will definitely be playing Delver's Drop on stream, as much, if not more, than Disgaea.
All right. Well, I guess if anyone wants to know more, our site is just delversdrop.com, and you can buy the game now. Or did you already say this part? If I think we always have the same users every week, but maybe someone will see this on YouTube later. So yeah, you can buy the game now and play an early version, which is now pretty far out of date. But we're hoping to have another public build available soon, and stuff.
Right. Oh, Kobe apparently called me the public outreach consultant or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty applicable too.
So well, I suppose I juggle PR and uploading in other multimedia projects. Although not much PR, not yet at least. One of these days, I'll be the guy that you get to talk to on the Steam forums. And you better be nice.
The guy you get to argue with on the Steam forums.
Yeah. You better be nice, because I don't play nice on forums.
All right.
I'm not sorry to keep dragging this on, but I am the only moderator on the forums that has ever banned a person.
On our forums?
Yeah, like an actual user. I'm the only.
I don't know if I'm sure I ought to know the story, but I don't remember now.
I'll tell you off stream. I'm the only mod that has done an actual like mod action of like deleting a person's post and doing like a reprimand. So keep that in mind. It's not Doom that you have to worry about. It's me. All right, thanks for watching, guys.
Kyle,
We'll be
the
back.
Batman of our forums.
Yep.
All right. See you all next week.